They told us to come in peace. Not just told, commanded. Every diplomat, every officer, every boots-on-the-ground soldier sent to the Vega summit got the same line drilled into their head. This is not Earth's war. You are not conquerors, you are guests. You represent humanity. And we listened. Most of us. We showed up with clean suits, polished boots, and empty holsters. Smiles we didn't mean. We played nice, even when the air stank of alien superiority and fake civility. The summit was hosted on Kairoth, a neutral planet sitting at the edge of the galactic core. Grand towers floated above oceans of glowing blue mist. Alien species from over 60 systems gathered under banners of peace. And there we were, humanity, the newcomers, the unpredictable variable, the species no one wanted to admit they feared. They called us primitive behind closed doors. Said we were reactionary, emotional, too unstable for interstellar politics. They smiled to our faces and warned their children about us behind our backs. We kept our mouths shut. We followed protocol. We played the game. But it was never going to be peace. Not when Admiral Curvin was sitting across from a Darvian warlord whose species sterilized an entire Earth colony 2 years prior. Not when the Trelzari still traded human prisoners for cybernetic testing. Not when every treaty proposal came laced with humiliating conditions: hand over mining rights, reduce fleet production, abandon outer settlements. It was a slow bleed, a polite way of saying, get in line or die quietly. That morning started like every other. I was assigned as security detail to Commander Rylan, one of the highest-ranking Earth officials in the room. The guy had been a stonewall since day one. Square jaw, cold stare, military posture that didn't relax even in his sleep. He'd fought in the Europa conflict, lost 2 squads under him, had the kind of reputation that made lesser men stand straighter in his presence. We were stationed just outside the Hall of Accords, an enormous dome made of translucent metal that shimmered like water in sunlight. Inside, the big names talked peace, while the rest of us stayed alert, hands resting near holsters that held nothing but ceremonial blades. And then the feed cut out. No warning, no static, just silence. The dome's glow dimmed, the shimmering stopped, and everyone in the room turned toward the blast doors. That's when we heard the screaming, not normal screams, not panic, slaughter. One of the guards, an Arvelin, tall and insectoid, tried to radio in. No response. Another opened the side panel to access emergency security protocols. His head exploded before he got the chance. I don't know who fired first, but I know who fell first. Humans. 4 Earth envoys cut down in less than 30 seconds. No warning, no negotiation. We were ambushed. Commander Rylan didn't flinch. While most of the other species scrambled in chaos, either rushing toward exits or flipping to combat stances, he stood still, pulled the ceremonial blade from his hip, and said just one thing: activate Contingency 9. I froze. That was not protocol. Contingency 9 was never discussed in public. It was a black-level override, locked behind the highest security clearance. Something even the Earth Senate denied existed. Rylan didn't wait. He jabbed the blade's handle against a hidden console embedded in the wall. The metal cracked open, revealing a small panel, coated in human tech. He pressed his palm to the scanner. And that's when it happened. From orbit, 8 stealth cruisers decloaked. From underground, drop pods launched straight through the Kiroth surface. From the ceremonial blades on our hips, mechanized hilt locks released, extending into pulse rifles. The aliens thought we came unarmed. They were wrong. We didn't bring weapons into their peace summit. We were the weapons. The guards with me, quiet, stone-faced men like myself, had all trained in zero-visibility close-quarters combat. No exosuits, no helmets, just earthborn muscle and brutal precision. The ones who attacked us didn't last 10 seconds. Bone cracked, limbs broke, weapons turned against them. Blood, not all of it human, painted the walls. Ryland stepped over a twitching Trelzari body, lifted the enemy's plasma cannon, and muttered, "Peace talks are over." And just like that, humanity stopped pretending. It felt like the atmosphere changed, not the air, the atmosphere of the entire galaxy. In one single act, everything turned. The whispers that had followed humanity around, the rumors, the fear, the suspicion, they all clicked into place. The gloves were off. Ryland didn't speak again. He didn't need to. The command had been given. Contingency 9 wasn't a tactical response. It was a message. Not to the aliens, not even to our allies. It was a message to us. No more pretending. I followed him through the broken blast doors, pulse rifle locked and charged. The alien alloy hissed and burned from plasma burns and explosive rounds. Kairoth's interior security had been overrun in seconds. By us. They didn't even know we were embedded beneath the summit. Hundreds of operatives, men and women stripped of identity, surgically enhanced, trained in deep shadow programs no civilian knew existed. Their records didn't exist. Their orders had been waiting for years. I passed a Terran drop team moving in formation down the corridor. Sleek black armor, chrome visors, mag boots clanking in unison. Not a word spoken. Every movement was precision violence. One of the aliens, a Yurthian diplomat, ran past me, screaming, unarmed, begging for help in a language I half understood. Ryland didn't even glance at him. I heard a shot from behind. Silence. "Why now?" I asked him. Not because I wanted an answer, because I needed to believe there was one. He didn't answer right away. We reached the Hall of Accords again, the place where just 2 hours ago, 75 races had signed a worthless draft calling for lasting peace. Now the hall was wreckage, shattered chairs, crushed pillars, blood on glass tiles. Several alien species lay dead, their guards executed. Their envoys silenced before they could even issue a protest. Earth operatives moved with surgical indifference, sweeping through side chambers, reclaiming evidence, isolating survivors. "You ever read the Karnath report?" Ryland finally asked. I frowned. "That classified file? Level Omega?" He smirked. "It's not a file. It's a lie. The Karnath massacre didn't go down the way they told you. You think humanity's paranoid? You should have seen what the Council buried." I didn't speak. Just kept my rifle steady as we moved down the side hall, where the Galactic Arbitration Board had been holding its secret session. "They set us up," he continued. "This summit wasn't to negotiate with us. It was to box us in. That's why they wanted disarmament. That's why they needed us to bring no real defense. They wanted Earth compliant, peaceful, weak." "But we knew?" I asked. He stopped walking. "No," he said. "We suspected. That's the thing about being the new species on the block. You learn fast, or you die." He pressed a hidden panel beside the wall, and a section of the stone folded open, revealing a stairway descending deep into the Kiroth sub-vaults. "They made a mistake," he said. "They thought we were animals. They thought our war history made us unfit for the stars." He looked back at me, and his eyes weren't cold. They were calm, steady, controlled. They didn't realize we remembered what they tried to do. I didn't understand that last part. Not then. But I followed him down the stairs anyway. In orbit, the rest of the galaxy was watching and panicking. Kiroth was never meant to see conflict. It had no weapons grid, no planetary defense systems. That was by design. Neutrality, they said. A place beyond war. They didn't consider that we might bring the war inside. The stealth cruisers that decloaked above the planet weren't ordinary military assets. They were part of Project Iron Vow, Earth's Black Fleet initiative. Ships that had no heat signatures, no ID tags, no registered crew. Ghost ships, untraceable, Unaccountable, unstoppable. They hadn't fired a single shot. They didn't need to. The threat alone brought galactic fleets to a halt. Kairoth's orbit was now surrounded by dozens of ships, from the Zellian Armada, the Darvian Syndicate, the Union of Vark, and none of them dared approach. Because now, they weren't just afraid of Earth's weapons. They were afraid of Earth's will. Back in the sub-vaults, Rylan and I reached a security chamber buried under miles of stone and alloy. A dozen alien guards were stationed there, all heavily armored, confused, weapons half-drawn. I stepped forward to de-escalate. Rylan shot first. The room exploded into chaos. I dropped 2 before they even turned their weapons. The rest fell under fire from descending Earth operatives, breaching through side walls and ceiling hatches. When the smoke cleared, Rylan moved to a locked chamber door. It glowed with arcane symbols, Vark encryption. It shouldn't have been accessible to us, but Rylan pulled a chip from under his collar and inserted it into the panel. Click. Open. Inside was not a war room, not a vault, a prison. And what I saw inside that room shattered any lingering belief I had in the summit's purpose. There were children, human children, dozens, maybe more. They weren't in chains. They weren't bloody, but their faces were pale, eyes sunken, movements robotic. I stepped inside. One boy looked up at me, blinking slowly, and whispered something I didn't catch. He looked no older than 10. "What is this?" I asked. Rylan didn't answer right away. He walked through them like he knew them. "These were the survivors from Stellan Prime," he finally said. I blinked. That colony was wiped out. No survivors. "Yeah," he said. "That's what the report says, because the Council made us write it that way." My stomach turned. Stellan Prime wasn't just a random colony. It was one of Earth's first successful joint planet settlements. Engineers, families, scientists, over 5,000 souls. Officially, the story had been sabotage by pirates. Total destruction. Earth wasn't allowed to retaliate because of Council jurisdiction. But they hadn't all died. Some had been taken, used, studied, silenced, and now they were here, beneath the so-called Hall of Peace. And we were the only ones who knew. Outside the chamber, panic was spreading. Alien media outlets were broadcasting the incident live, skewing the story, spinning us as aggressors. Earth assaults Kairoth. Human betrayal unfolds. Diplomacy ends in blood. Didn't matter. The footage couldn't be faked. The Council had lied. The host races were complicit. Their peace was a lie wrapped in genocide, and we were done playing nice. Rylan gave the order. Broadcast it all. The feeds went live. We didn't hide it, didn't edit it. We showed the children. The hidden prisons, the alien experiments. We showed the symbols, the locations, the Council seals, and the galaxy watched in silence. It wasn't over. As we extracted the survivors, the Council deployed their elite enforcers, not soldiers, but enforcers of silence, the Order of Harmonics. They weren't bound by race or planet. They served the Central Council. Their job was simple: erase anything that threatened the image of order. They appeared through wormholes, 11 of them. Clad in silver bioarmor, weapons humming with high-frequency energy, they didn't issue demands. They attacked. We lost 20 men in the first strike, but they underestimated us again. They didn't know we'd studied them, mimicked their weapons, trained against simulations modeled off their techniques. We didn't outgun them. We outlasted them. I watched Rylan duel one of them alone. The enforcer moved like lightning, silent, flowing, cruel. Rylan fought dirty, headbutts, elbow strikes. Distraction feints. When the enforcer finally went down, Rylan didn't pause to celebrate. He reloaded, Outside, the Council finally broke silence. They called for Earth to stand down, to cease all further violence, to submit to inquiry. Rylan laughed when the message came through. He walked to the central broadcast node, blood dripping from his jaw, and said just 2 words. No. Then he shut the feed off. We weren't there to conquer. We weren't even there to avenge. We were there to remind the galaxy of one simple thing. Humanity doesn't forget. You sterilize our colonies? We remember. You take our children? We remember. You sit at tables pretending peace while hiding our dead beneath your halls? We remember. And when we remember, we bring hell with us. As we finished extraction, Rylan received a transmission from Earth High Command. They didn't stop us. They didn't apologize. They simply confirmed the activation of Protocol HFY. That meant one thing. We weren't just retaliating anymore. We were severing ties. The Earth government was withdrawing from all galactic treaties, disbanding Council recognition, and entering into autonomous military mode. Every Earthborn ship now operated under war doctrine. Every soldier was cleared for action. Every colony was advised to fortify. And every species watching the stream now understood. Peace was their game. But survival, that's ours. The last child stepped out of the vault, holding Rylan's hand. The boy looked up at him and asked, "Are we going home?" Rylan didn't smile, but his voice didn't shake either. "Yeah, kid," he said. "You are." He let go of the boy's hand and turned to me. "We've done enough damage here. Let's go." I nodded, still shaken, still processing. I wasn't sure if what we did was justice or vengeance, but I knew one thing for sure. We didn't start this war, but we sure as hell were going to end it. The galaxy didn't take our silence lightly. Within 3 standard hours, Council worlds were in full diplomatic lockdown. Border patrols doubled. Trade routes were suspended. Earth was labeled a rogue actor, and a red alert was placed on every known human vessel, military or civilian. They called us the Broken Species. It was ironic, really. We'd done everything to be civil. We'd joined their councils, signed their treaties, played by their rules, even when those rules led to our people getting slaughtered. Now that we finally stood up, they called us dangerous. They called us mad. They didn't call us wrong. Back on Earth, the sky was clear. A strange thing, considering we were now at war with half the known universe. But that's the thing about Earth. We've always lived with threats overhead. We never needed peace to survive. We only needed time to prepare, time to build. And we had done just that, for decades. The public didn't know. Not fully. Most thought the military buildup was just precautionary. Most thought the stories of Project Black Halo were tinfoil-level nonsense. Until the Gavel transmission. That was the turning point. The Gavel transmission came from a planet called Dershan 2, a mid-sized council world home to over 4 billion inhabitants. It wasn't a military world. It wasn't even strategic. It was symbolic. That's where the council had announced, live on broadcast, a vote of condemnation. Every race's ambassador, gathered in ceremonial robes, publicly declared humanity as a hostile force and authorized military intervention. They made it look righteous. They made it look clean. They didn't think we'd respond. They thought Earth was still begging for a seat at the table. They didn't know we'd already built our own. Protocol HFY wasn't just a political move. It was a switch. A kill command sent across deep space relays, activating sleeper fleets, orbital platforms, and black site AI that had been lying dormant for years. The Gavel transmission aired at 12:06 galactic time. At 12:22, the broadcast ended, abruptly. The screen went black. The last image ever seen was the sky above Dershan 2 turning to fire. What hit them wasn't a missile. It wasn't a railgun or a kinetic rod. It was Prometheus Station, a weaponized orbital array Earth had launched under a weather satellite disguise 35 years ago. Its beam was silent. Its effect? Total atmospheric collapse. No explosions, no screams, just silence. The planet's core wasn't touched, no scorched Earth, no massive loss of life. But every council ambassador in that chamber? Gone. Every broadcast relay? Fried. The vote to condemn Earth? Never reached the archives. It was the most polite declaration of war humanity had ever issued. And it said, "You don't get to rewrite our story." I watched it happen from orbit. Our ship, the CNS Vengeance, floated in high lunar patrol. We weren't even on the front line. But when the news came in, I saw faces change, not with fear, with relief. The mask was off. There was no more pretending, no more handshakes with snakes, no more watching our own people vanish under council investigations. Ryland stood at the forward observation deck, arms crossed, not saying a word. I stepped beside him. "They'll strike back," I said. He nodded slowly. "They already are." The retaliation came hard. The Darvian Syndicate was first. One of the Council's elite military arms, specializing in orbital disruption and nerve gas infiltration. Their message was simple. You crossed a line. We received word that a human listening outpost on the outer edge of the far reach, the Vega 17 array, had gone silent. Last report mentioned incoming Darvian warships. The outpost wasn't armed. It was a relay station, just 37 staff, all gone, vaporized. The Darvians even left a message. Their sigil burned into the orbital dust cloud, visible to any passing vessel. They wanted to humiliate us. They didn't know what we'd buried in Silo 6. Silo 6 wasn't a ship. It was a man. Codename: Kane, one of Earth's black-class operatives, genetically sculpted, cybernetically enhanced, trained beyond human limitation. A one-man warhead. Kane wasn't stationed on Vega 17. He had been sleeping in cryo on Rimlock, waiting for a release protocol. He got it that day. We didn't send a fleet to answer the Darvians. We sent him. He didn't land with a drop pod. He punched through their hull. One man. 18 hours. 7 ships gone. No survivors. The only thing that remained of the Darvian strike force was a transmission Kane sent after the mission. We remember Vega 17. After that, the Council started to fracture. The Zellians, known for their political neutrality, withdrew all their ships from Council space. The Garathi refused to send troops to the front lines. The Veltor Union even opened backdoor negotiations with Earth's diplomats. The Council started seeing the truth. This wasn't just retaliation. This was revelation. They thought Earth was a volatile child trying to play war. But Earth was a man in the corner of a bar, bleeding from a stab wound, calmly wrapping the blade in cloth before he burned the entire tavern down. But even among us, among the humans, there were fractures. Not everyone agreed with Ryland's approach. The Earth Senate issued a motion of censure. Civilians started protesting. The media, finally unshackled from council pressure, split in two. Some called us heroes. Others called us monsters. In the shadows of our own victories, something darker was growing. They called themselves the Accorded. A splinter faction made of human politicians, former ambassadors, ex-council sympathizers. They believed Earth should surrender. That survival was better than war. They started sabotaging comm relays, started leaking ship locations, started killing their own. Ryland didn't hesitate. He declared them enemies of Earth. We hunted them like rats. Not because they disagreed, but because they chose the enemy's side in a war that wasn't about pride. It was about memory. We remembered what the galaxy tried to do to us, and we weren't going to let our own kind help them finish the job. I remember the night we caught the leader of the Accorded, Minister Raylan Corvex, former Earth Council representative. He was hiding in the wreckage of an orbital relay, sending coordinates to Darvian warlords. Rylan walked into the cell himself. I watched through the glass as Corvex spat blood on the table and said, "This isn't Earth's way. We should have taken the peace. You've doomed us all." Rylan leaned in close. His voice was low, not angry, not cruel, just final. "We tried peace. We begged for peace. You know what they gave us?" He leaned back. "They gave us a mass grave and a hollow treaty." He walked out. The airlock opened 10 minutes later. Corvex never got a funeral. He got a lesson. The next week, Earth released its new doctrine. It was only 2 lines. "We will not be ruled. We will not forget." Every human ship, planet, outpost, military or not, started flying the same black flag. No stars, no stripes, just a single red circle. One eye, always watching. And underneath, the words, "Came in peace, left in pieces." The galaxy would never forget Kiroth, but they would remember what came after even more. The orders came without ceremony. No speech, no oath, no propaganda. Just a secure transmission routed through 3 AI filters with a blinking red line of text. Target, Varelli's station. Objective, cleanse, leave no trace. We knew what that meant. Varelli's wasn't a war target. It was worse. It was a logistics hub, the kind of place where the Council stored its secrets and made sure none of them saw daylight. Not a single civilian aboard. All black-badged operators. A floating archive for things too dangerous to erase, but too damning to let breathe. Rylan gathered us in the war room. His face was harder than usual. Not cruel, not cold, just focused. "This isn't about revenge," he said. "This is about truth." Someone scoffed. I didn't see who it was, but Rylan heard it. He turned his eyes slowly across the room. Sharp. Sharp enough to cut steel. "You think what we found on Kiroth was bad?" he asked. "You think what they did to the Stellan children was where the rabbit hole ends?" He took a breath. "Varelli's is where it begins." That was all we needed. We didn't need to understand the mission. We just needed to complete it. The CNS Vengeance broke orbit in full blackout mode, headed straight into neutral space, escorted by 2 fire cruisers and a stealth frigate so black it didn't even reflect starlight. Inside the ship, everyone was silent. We weren't green. We weren't boys. Everyone in that drop bay had seen combat, had buried brothers, had made peace with dying. But that silence? It wasn't fear. It was respect. Everyone knew this target wasn't like the others. This wasn't vengeance. This was surgery. This was cutting the throat of the disease. Varelli's station floated like a corpse in the dark. No visible weapons, no active shielding, no distress signal. They thought secrecy would protect them. They thought being hidden meant being untouchable. But Earth's Black Eye Division had been tracking Varelli's for years. We knew its location. We knew its schedule. Hell, we knew their biometric rotation before they did. Rylan stood at the ramp as we breached. Helmet off, face bare, pulse rifle in hand. He didn't give a rousing speech, didn't tell us we were heroes. He just said, "If you see something in a cage, free it. If it resists, kill it. Let nothing leave alive." We dropped into the station without resistance. No guards, no cameras. No defense, which made it worse. They weren't unprepared. They were confident. Inside, Varelli's was a mausoleum. The lights flickered red and blue in rotations that never touched the floor. The metal walls hummed with a sound too deep to hear, just felt in the bones. Doors opened before we reached them. Hallways turned before we walked them. The station was watching us, not defending, just watching. There were no bodies, no footsteps, not even signs of life, until we hit Block Theta. That's where we found the first room. It looked like a hospital. Sterile white walls, oxygen tanks, IV drips, automated health monitors, but there were no beds, just pods. And inside those pods, "Is that human?" one of the rookies asked. Ryland stepped forward. His jaw twitched just once. Half. They weren't just experimenting on humans. They were breeding them. Crossbreeds, hybrids, spliced DNA strands with council gene stock. Some had elongated spines. Others had gills, or 3 eyes. Or hardened skin with scales beneath. Some were awake, staring, mute. Most weren't. One boy couldn't have been older than 5. He had a human face, soft, scared eyes, but his veins glowed purple. The second he saw us, he whispered something none of us understood. Rylan walked to the pod. The boy didn't flinch. He reached out and touched the glass. Rylan placed his hand there too. Then he pulled his sidearm and fired. Straight through the pod. The boy didn't scream. He smiled. And died. "Don't mourn them," Ryland said. "They died a long time ago." I hated him for that, for a second. Then I saw the next room. That's when the hate turned into something else. Understanding. There were adults, dozens, strapped to walls, limbs missing, tubes down throats, machines buzzing in pulses that made the air taste like iron. None of them were conscious, but some were still alive. Barely. Their species were mixed. Human, Trelzari, even some Gorathi. But the scars on their bodies didn't come from war. They came from science. Sick, twisted science. Skin peeled, nerves mapped, bones exposed with plates fused into living tissue. One wall displayed data charts. Subject E14, extreme pain threshold testing, lethal limits. Subject G91, memory deletion via electromagnetic pulse. Subject H03, hybrid breeding viability, terminated after failure to respond. These weren't prisoners, they were projects. And humanity wasn't the only one on the table. Rylan downloaded everything, the logs, the files, the test videos, the council sign-offs, and there it was. The truth we'd suspected for years. The council didn't exist to protect the galaxy. It existed to manage it, control it. Genetically, politically, physically, they weren't a governing body, they were a farm. And we? We were livestock. The order was given. No survivors, no evidence. Burn it all. We planted charges, cleaned the systems. Took every log and scrubbed the rest. But just as we reached the evac point, alarms rang. Not station alarms, external. Something big was coming. The sensor tech looked up from her display, pale-faced. "It's a Terran dreadnought." We froze. Terrans didn't respond to council orders. They didn't send ships unless it was to annihilate. And that meant only one thing. The council hadn't sent them. Someone else had. We barely got out. The Vengeance had to break 6 emergency protocols to open a wormhole from inside the gravitational boundary. The Terran dreadnought didn't follow. It didn't need to. We saw it fired just before the breach took us. Varelli's station and everything inside it was gone. Not disabled, erased. And every council race watching that sector suddenly realized Earth hadn't overreacted. Earth had just reacted too late. Back at command, Rylan released the files. Not to our allies. To everyone. No censorship, no edits. Just raw, brutal truth. Footage of the experiments. Council officials signing off on population control protocols, breed mapping, psychological tampering, memory resets of entire planets. We didn't push a message. We didn't say, "We told you so." We let the truth do what bullets couldn't. By nightfall, riots broke out on 11 council worlds. By morning, 2 entire races renounced their memberships. And by the end of the week, 4 more opened diplomatic channels with Earth. Not alliances, not peace talks, just one sentence. We didn't know. We want to talk. It was working. But Rylan wasn't satisfied. "This isn't justice," he said. "This is survival, and survival means we finish what we started." "What are you saying?" I asked. He turned to me with eyes that had stared down monsters in the dark and refused to blink. "I'm saying it's time we burn their heart." The Council's heart had no name. No star charts marked its orbit. No navigation AIs could lock on it. They called it the core, and if that sounds vague, that's because they wanted it to be. The only people who'd ever seen it and come back were council elders and their elite harmonizers, zealots dressed in silver who spoke like preachers and killed like surgeons. But Rylan had a name, not a myth. Selvaron. Buried under 6 layers of decoys, cloaked behind radiation anomalies and black hole mimicry, Selvaron was the Council's final vault, the origin of its founding documents, genetic archives, war records, and fail-safes. It wasn't a fortress. It was a kill switch. If the Council was ever truly threatened, they would retreat to Selvaron, lock down the galaxy, and erase entire species if needed. And Rylan wanted to take it, not for power, not for leverage. He wanted to burn it. We didn't fly in a fleet. We flew silent. Small. A single black Corvette, the Harbinger, fitted with fold-skin plating, pulse-dampened engines, and enough antimatter breachers to crater a continent. Crew, 10, all hand-picked, Rylan at the helm, me as field lead, 6 operators from Black Eye, 2 off-the-books assets. One of them I didn't trust from the start. Name was Marek, ex-diplomatic officer turned infiltrator. Too clean, too quiet, never broke rank, never cracked a joke, spoke 6 alien tongues, but never swore in English. He didn't fight in the Kiroth push, didn't even show during Vorelli's. Rylan vouched for him, said he had access. I didn't argue, but I watched him like a loaded weapon. The trip to Selvaron took 4 blind jumps. No beacons, no trails. By the time we reached the outer veil, we were flying blind. Our ship nearly ruptured crossing the atmospheric bleed field. Gravity surged, then dropped out completely. For 4 minutes we were upside down, screaming past collapsing matter. Then suddenly, stillness. Selvaron hung in the dark like a dead god. No sun, no moons, just a monolith of black metal, too smooth to be natural, pulsing faint blue at the edges. No weapons visible, no patrols. Rylan's voice came over comms. "Remember this moment. This is the last time the galaxy will feel peace." We dropped on foot. No shuttles. We used infiltration frames, exosuits designed for zero-footprint, silent entry. Black as oil. Fitted with grav mesh. No recoil emissions. Selvaron's surface looked empty, but under the crust were kilometers of corridors, chambers, vaults. And the first thing we saw when we breached? A graveyard. Not bones, not corpses. Ships. Thousands of them. Ancient, half-melted, some still glowing with radiation scars. Earth ships, Veltor carriers. Even Garathi hives. Wreckage never reported. Vessels officially listed as missing or lost in battle. They weren't lost. They were buried. Silenced. A warning to anyone who ever found this place. We were too far in to care. The corridors were alive. Not with people, with data. The walls shimmered faintly, alive with neural wiring that fed the Council's AI. Every step triggered a pulse. Every breath echoed like it didn't belong. Marek guided us with eerie precision. "No guards?" I asked. He shook his head. "It doesn't need guards. You breathe wrong in here. It'll rewrite your DNA." Rylan kept moving. "This place was never meant to be attacked," he said. "They believed fear alone would protect it." We moved through 6 chambers before we hit our first obstacle. Not a wall, not a turret. A man. He stood in the center of the passage, silver robes, armored spine, eyes like liquid metal. No weapon. We raised ours anyway. He didn't flinch. Turn back, he said calmly. Your species is not authorized here. Ryland stepped forward. Neither was yours when it arrived. The harmonizer smiled. Difference is we learned to obey. I'll say this. He moved fast. Faster than anything I've seen. He covered 10 meters in under a second, palm glowing with concussive energy, aimed straight for Ryland's chest. Didn't matter. Ryland didn't move. He let the hit connect, and then detonated the reactive plates in his chest armor. The harmonizer's arm shattered on impact, his ribs folded in like paper. He fell. We didn't stop. We reached the command archive within the hour. A sphere suspended in magnetic field, rotating constantly, coded with millions of living data strings. Every order, every erased species, every betrayal. This was the brain, the black heart of galactic control. We planted the charges, not nuclear, not EMP, something worse. Memory burners, designed to reduce all data into molecular ash, not just erase it, make it so it could never be known again. Merrick approached the console, started pulling security layers off like they were nothing. That's when I knew. He'd been here before. I pulled Ryland aside. This guy's not a spy. He's one of them. Ryland stared at me. Hard. I know. That stopped me. Then why bring him? Ryland's voice dropped to a whisper. Because he knows where the genetic kill list is. I froze. That was legend. A myth told in Black Ops barracks, that the Council maintained a genetic algorithm of every living species, with programmable extinction codes, bioweapons that could target bloodlines. Entire planets could be sterilized with a single strand of engineered gas, keyed to a race's biology. Ryland pointed at the next chamber. It's in there. And Merrick was already halfway through the door. The moment we stepped inside, the temperature dropped. The chamber wasn't warm metal like the rest. It was stone, old, carved, and in the center, a sarcophagus, 10 meters long, laced in energy conduits. Inside wasn't a body, it was a forge, a living AI core built to write extinction. The Council hadn't just prepared for war, they prepared for annihilation. Merrick, Ryland barked. Unlock it. That's when he turned. And for the first time, he smiled. Not friendly. Pitying. I can't, he said. Why? Because it's already active. Before anyone could move, alarms screamed. The AI inside the forge surged with light. A voice boomed out in dozens of languages. Most I didn't know. One word repeated. Erasure. A countdown began. Merrick, what the hell did you do? I roared. He didn't answer. Ryland shot him in the leg. Merrick dropped screaming, clutching his thigh. I didn't trigger it, he gasped. The moment you entered this room, it did. It's programmed to self-activate upon non-council presence. Can you stop it? No. Ryland stared at the forge. How long? Merrick glanced at the numbers. 7 minutes. We couldn't outrun it. The blast would level the planet. We couldn't call for help. We were blacklisted. We couldn't disable it. The system had no kill switch. But we could do one thing. We could redirect it. The forge wasn't just a weapon. It was a messenger. Ryland's idea was insane, so insane it might work. We couldn't shut it down, but we could feed it new coordinates. Merrick resisted. I won't help you burn this place. Ryland looked at me. Shoot him. I didn't hesitate. I didn't aim for the leg. I went through the stomach. He screamed, then started typing. We rerouted the target vector. Instead of releasing on Selveron, we sent it into the nearest Council fleet, over 30 capital ships in orbit, waiting to deploy once the weapon confirmed Earth's invasion. The irony? They became the first victims of their own genocide program. At Ozuro Togaru, the weapon pulsed, a silent shockwave, nothing visible, But in orbit, chaos. Ships shut down, hull cracks, crews dying in seconds. The Forge had rewritten their biology to self-destruct under gravity flux. We watched the feed, silent. Until Rylan finally said, "Now we leave." The escape wasn't clean. Harmonizers swarmed us on the way out. We lost 2 men, but we made it. As Selvaron burned behind us, the Harbinger jumped, back to known space, back to war. But we didn't come back with fear. We came back with leverage, with truth, with the kind of weapon no Council species could ignore anymore. And Rylan had one last message to send. Broadcast on every open channel, in every known tongue. His face calm, his voice clear. You built a system meant to erase us. You failed. Now we erase you. We thought Selvaron's destruction would finish it. We thought once the Council's dirty vaults were exposed, once their extinction weapon turned on their own fleet, the galaxy would fold. It didn't. It broke. The power vacuum cracked the galactic core in half. Every faction that once kneeled to the Council rose with sharpened blades and an axe to grind. The Gorathi hegemony accused the Veltor Union of plotting with Earth. The Trelzari Combine declared martial law across 5 sectors. The Zelians launched a scorched Earth retreat from all diplomatic colonies. And Earth? We didn't have to fire another shot. They were burning each other without us lifting a finger. But Rylan wasn't smiling. This is the most dangerous moment, he told me. Not because they hate us, but because now they've got nothing left to lose. He was right. Desperate enemies don't sue for peace. They look for one last weapon, and they found him. We picked up the transmission 2 days after Selvaron went dark, encrypted in old Earth war code, something we hadn't used since the Europa collapse. Rylan recognized it immediately. It came from Spectre 5, an off-grid relay station Earth abandoned years ago after the Council banned military intelligence sharing. No one should have been alive there, but someone was. The transmission was short. 6 words. You missed one piece, Commander Rylan. No name, no coordinates, just a dead channel, and a voice Rylan hadn't heard in over a decade. His old CO, Commander Halric Kane. Kane wasn't a war hero. He was the blueprint for everything Black Eye Division became. He trained Rylan, built him, broke him, turned him from a soldier into a ghost. He was brilliant, unforgiving, precise. And during the Europa collapse, when half of Earth's forces were ambushed, he disappeared. Presumed dead. But Rylan never bought that. He wouldn't die quietly, Rylan once told me. He's too proud for that. Turns out he was right. We tracked the signal to the edge of dead space, a fracture zone between collapsed wormholes where navigation systems turned to static and ships disappeared for sport. Only a madman would live out there. Or a traitor. We jumped in blind, Harbinger stripped to stealth mode. No beacon, no backup, just me, Rylan, and 4 hand-picked ghosts. When we landed on Spectre 5, the air smelled like rust and old blood. The station was still functional, still warm. Inside, we found Kane, still alive, still smiling, and behind him, an alien. Trelzari, tall, black-eyed, covered in ceremonial scarring, a council priest. I should kill you, Rylan said. Kane looked like he hadn't aged a day, still sharp, still standing like a soldier with his back against the wall, and his mind 3 steps ahead of everyone else. You could try, Kane said, but you'd never hear what I have to offer. You're working with them. Kane shrugged. Working? No? Holding? Yes. This priest didn't come here. I brought him. From Selvaron. Before you lit the place up. I stepped forward, weapon drawn. We destroyed everything. No, Kane said. You destroyed what you could see, But the Council doesn't store its power in weapons or ships or archives. It stores it in people. Rylan looked at the priest. What is he? Not what, Kane said. Who? This is Elder Voth, third seat of the Founding Circle, keeper of the memory thread. Rylan's jaw clenched. That's impossible. He was cryo-locked, hidden, probably meant to be revived after the war, once the galaxy bent back into shape. And you kept him alive? I studied him. Rylan's eyes narrowed. What for? Kane smiled. Because he knows the last protocol. We didn't know what Kane meant at the time, but that phrase stuck. The last protocol. Whatever it was, Rylan knew it too. He didn't show it on his face, but I'd served with him long enough to read tension when it crackled behind his silence. He stepped forward, lowered his rifle. What's the price? Rylan asked. Kane raised a brow. I didn't offer it yet. I know you, Rylan said coldly. You don't call us out here unless you want something. Kane stepped to the console, pulled up an ancient map. Not star systems, not military paths, but gene chains. Billions of them, each one tagged by species, age, origin, location. This, Kane said, is the Council's extinction web. You found a piece of it on Selveron, but you didn't find the core. This map here, it's how they wipe civilizations from existence without ever firing a shot. You input the chain. It sends out biological triggers hidden in food shipments, water systems, planetary atmospheres. He looked Rylan dead in the eyes. And Earth's chain is active. Silence hit harder than a gunshot. Rylan didn't move. What do you mean, active? I said. Kane zoomed in on a cluster of chains. One glowed red. Someone triggered Earth's kill sequence 12 hours ago. Slow burn release. Starts in fringe colonies. Spreads back to Terra. Full collapse within 3 months. No, I said. We destroyed the system. You destroyed Selveron's node, but the backup chain was stored here, in Voth's mind, and now it's being deployed. Rylan looked at the priest. You told him? The priest didn't respond. Kane answered for him. No, I extracted it. He'll be brain dead by morning. I wanted to put a bullet in Kane's head right there, but Rylan raised a hand. Why tell us? Kane smiled. Because I know you. You'll fight anyone, even fate. And right now, Earth doesn't need another war. It needs a cure. He turned to the screen. There's a vault in the Oran depths, hidden under the oceans of an abandoned gas giant. It contains the original genome Earth was seeded with, before the Council laced it with sterilizers. You get that genome, you can reboot your people, bypass the kill sequence. And what do you want in return? Rylan asked. Kane's voice turned cold. I want the Council's last AI, the one hidden in Drexus Prime. You've seen what the Council is capable of, but the AI, that's the key to rebuilding. Rylan stared at him for a long time. You want to replace them? Kane nodded. Someone has to lead. I choose us. We left without giving him an answer. Rylan didn't speak for hours. When he finally did, it wasn't to me. He recorded a private transmission to Earth Command. I only caught the end. If I don't come back, you know what to do. The next mission split the team. Rylan took 2 men to Oran Depths to retrieve the genome. I led the rest to Drexus, to either secure the AI or destroy it. Kane had given us the coordinates. I still didn't trust him. Neither did Rylan. But there was no time left. Earth was already dying. In the outer colonies, reports came in. Crops failing overnight. Children born with missing organs. Entire sectors going sterile. It was happening. The kill sequence was real, and only 2 things could stop it. Our mission, or our extinction. The Oran Depths didn't exist on any star map. It wasn't just remote, it was deliberately erased. Even the gravity around it was hostile, irregular. Nothing wanted to live there. And yet, buried beneath the pressure of a gas giant's poisoned ocean, was the genetic vault Rylan had been hunting. The place that supposedly held the original human genome, the key to resisting the Council's kill sequence. But even as Rylan piloted his drop sub through pitch-black waters that whispered like they were alive, he wasn't thinking about DNA strands. He was thinking about Kane. And the question he couldn't shake. If Kane's telling the truth, why does it feel like a trap? The sub shuddered with every kilometer. Oren's atmosphere wasn't gas in the usual sense. It was more like intelligent pressure. Sensors kept glitching. Sonar bounced back in wrong shapes. The AI guiding Rylan, stripped down, non-networked, combat-safe, kept reporting impossible readings. Lifeform density exceeds organic parameters, it warned. Recommend immediate ascent. Rylan ignored it. He didn't come to survive. He came to win. At 9,000 meters, the ocean opened. He didn't see it at first, not until the sonar hit something massive, unmoving, a structure, alien, angular, dark stone fused with bone-white metal, no lights, no motion. It looked ancient, but not dead, like something that had been waiting. The sub latched onto its surface. Rylan stepped out in a pressurized exosuit designed for 3 minutes at this depth. He didn't have 3 minutes, he had 1. The vault door wasn't locked. That was the first bad sign. The second was the symbols etched across the walls, not alien, human, not current Earth script. Something older, deeper. Patterns found in pre-language cave systems back home. And in the center of the vault, suspended in blue light, was the genetic core. Not a computer, not a drive, a body. Rylan stepped closer, heart pounding. The body floated weightless, curled like a fetus. Male, muscular, no scars, no aging, no expression, just perfect stillness, until it opened its eyes. Back on Drex's Prime, I had my own problem. The facility wasn't abandoned like Kane promised. It was armed, and not with soldiers, with machines. They came out of the walls, not droids, not bots. More like shells. Empty humanoid vessels made of polished obsidian, hollow-eyed, moving without visible fuel or purpose. We opened fire. Rounds passed through them like smoke. But the moment one touched you, you felt it. One of my men, Radek, took a hand to the chest. He didn't scream. He just stopped, his suit locked up, eyes wide, brain dead, like the thing had unplugged his soul. We fell back into the inner sanctum. The AI was waiting. It didn't speak with sound. It used our memories. It spoke to each of us in a voice we recognized. For me, it was my father's. "You fear the end of your kind," it said. "But your kind is already gone. You are simulations, engineered for conflict, perfect soldiers pretending to be a species." I tried to block it out. We rigged the room with charges. Our goal was simple: find the AI core, destroy it, prevent Kane from ever rebuilding the Council. But it wasn't that easy. The AI offered a deal. "Let me live," it said. "And I'll rewrite the sequence, not just to cure you, to elevate you." One of my men, Grayson, froze. "You mean we become immune?" "No," the AI said through his dead wife's voice. "You become dominant. Nothing can touch you, not war, not time, not even death." Grayson looked at me, and then pointed his weapon at me. Back in the Oren vault, Rylan didn't flinch. The floating body, the genetic original, drifted toward him, eyes wide. It wasn't human. It was beyond human. The thing moved like it had never been bound by time. Its skin shimmered, not with color, but with code. Binary under skin. DNA strands in motion. "You are not the first, Rylan," it said. Its voice was his voice. "You're not the last. You're not real. You're a variant." A failed draft. Rylan raised his weapon. You're the one that failed, he said. You were buried. The being smiled. No, I was preserved. Your species was the experiment. And that's when the walls came alive. Back on Drexus, Grayson fired. I dove right, shot him clean through the visor. The rest of the team opened up. The shells shattered like glass. The AI screamed, not in fear, in fury. You chose extinction. The floor collapsed. We dropped into a chamber of data spires, glowing with memories. Not just information, records of every erased species, and one of them was us. Humanity had already been cataloged for deletion 1,000 years ago. The only reason we survived? A glitch. A single digit off in the Council's genome database had labeled us non-viable for extermination. We weren't meant to live this long. We were a broken line, an error. And now the AI wanted to finish the job. On Orin, Rylan fought the creature hand to hand. Bullets didn't work. Blades didn't cut. He turned off the exosuit, dropped his own protection. Let the pressure crush his lungs. Let the blood fill his ears. Let the ocean try to take him. And as the thing grabbed him by the throat, Rylan did what only a man who refused to die quietly would do. He smiled, pulled the microcore from his glove, and stabbed it into the thing's chest. A DNA destabilizer, meant for council hybrids. The thing screamed. Not in pain, in shock. It had never been wounded before. Rylan said 2 words before the vault collapsed. You're not God! I planted the charges. The Drexy's AI begged, not with voices, with memories. My daughter's laughter, my mother's hand on my shoulder, my first steps on Earth soil. The AI played my soul like a piano. But I'd seen Earth's children born without lungs. I'd seen colonies starve without cause. I pushed the button. The world went white. Rylan was recovered days later, half drowned, lungs torn, face bleeding from a dozen fractures. But alive. In his hand, the genome seed, the real one. Not code, not simulation. Life, pure, untouched, free of the Council's mark. And when Earth's labs ran it, they wept, because for the first time in a century humanity had a future without permission. But the cost? Half of Black-Eye dead, Grayson gone, and Kane vanished. No trace, but he left a final message. You won the war, Rylan. Now let's see if you can survive the peace. The war ended the way most wars do, not with a celebration. With silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel like peace, the kind that feels like something's missing. The Council was gone, not officially, not publicly, but dead in every way that mattered. Its fleets had either turned on each other or retreated into the black. Its leaders were ghosts or bodies, its systems sterilized, its control shattered. Earth stood alone again, only this time it stood unbroken. The genome seed Rylan retrieved from Orin was already working. Earth's labs used it to synthesize a counter-virus, not just halting the Council's extinction sequence, but reversing it. Children born with stunted lungs started to breathe easy. Food stopped poisoning us. Sterile populations restarted. For the first time in generations, humanity wasn't dying. And for the first time ever, we didn't owe anyone for it. We weren't part of a treaty. We weren't someone's pawn. We were just us. But that kind of freedom? It costs more than blood. Rylan never came back to Earth. He stayed off-world, moved between fringe outposts and burnt stations, helping rebuild systems that hadn't seen sunlight in years. Quiet, unseen. He didn't attend the memorials, didn't give speeches, didn't put on a uniform. He wasn't a general. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man trying to disappear in the noise he'd helped create. And I understood why. Because when you win a war like this, when you survive this much, people stop seeing you as human. They see you as legend, and legends can't rest. I found him 3 months after Drexus, a no-name outpost on the edge of the Axiari belt. He was drinking synthetic whiskey and watching a storm crawl over a frozen moon. No guards, no armor, just Rylan, still breathing, still haunted. I sat beside him and didn't say a word for 20 minutes. When he finally spoke, it wasn't to me. It was to the ghosts. I still hear them. I didn't ask who, because I already knew. He broke the silence again. Hours later. "The war didn't fix us," he said. "It just bought us time." I nodded. He turned to me, dead eyes sharp under tired skin. "And what do we do with that time? That's the real question." I didn't have an answer. But Kane did. He came back the way he always did. Uninvited. Broadcasted across secure Earth channels. Embedded in code so deep even our black-tier AIs couldn't intercept it without his help. Just a face. Flickering, older, but smiling. "You're free now," Kane said. "Congratulations. But freedom without direction is just a long suicide. The galaxy is broken. It needs something new, not another council, not another chain of command. It needs us." He paused. "You have the tools. You have the fear. You have the power. Now finish it." He didn't say how. He didn't say where. Just closed with a whisper. "Or someone else will." That night, Earth's provisional government held a vote. Reconstruction Authority, a proposal to establish a new central body to organize post-council relations and defend Earth's interests. On paper, it looked harmless. A diplomatic committee, a watchdog. But I saw the framework. So did Rylan. It was a council by another name. Earth was following the same steps, centralizing control, writing laws in fear, managing other species for safety. We'd fought like hell to break the leash. Now we were braiding a new one. Rylan said nothing in public. But behind closed doors, he had one last plan. It wasn't political. It wasn't legal. It was surgical. One night, 48 hours before the Reconstruction vote, every critical data terminal tied to the authority was destroyed by a cascading worm. Not wiped, not hacked. Melted. The virus used ancient council code embedded in the very genome files we recovered from Orin. Only one man could have known it was there. Rylan. When the public found out, they demanded accountability. When the provisional government tried to arrest him, he was already gone. They called him a rogue, a terrorist, a traitor. But the people on the ground, the colonies, the soldiers, they called him something else. The one who kept us human. Because in a time when power was free for the taking, Rylan chose not to take it. A year passed. Humanity didn't collapse. It adapted. Different systems took root. Trade routes opened again. Former council worlds reached out on their own terms. Without treaties, without coercion, we weren't their rulers. We were their equals. The galaxy started learning what we already knew. Freedom isn't safe, but it's real. I never saw Rylan again, not in person, but every now and then, a fringe colony would report an old man helping build a generator. A stranger with dead eyes and scars who never gave a name. Sometimes a council loyalist would try to re-establish order, and that stranger would end up in the shadows, just watching. Reminding them, Earth remembers. Kane? No one knows where he went. Some say he's building something, a society, a doctrine, maybe even a new council of his own. Others say Rylan found him first, and finished it. Me? I think Kane's waiting, not to rebuild the past, but to test the future, to see if we'll make the same mistake, or finally walk a different path. As for Earth, we still carry weapons, still train soldiers, still watch the stars, because peace isn't a promise, it's a post. And someone has to stand it, so we stand. Tired. Bloody, but alive. Because when the peace talks failed, the galaxy thought we came unarmed. They thought wrong. We were the weapon. And now? Now we're something even more dangerous. We're free.